All right, man. Now that we already had a podcast, we'll do that one later.
I was just about to lead with that exact intro. I was like, now that we got a nice, good lather going, it's May 28th, the year 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 772.
Yeah, I think we both had the same thought on that. It was like good stuff, but we want to kind of let it percolate a little bit. But we're going to come back hard with the nutrition podcast soon, I feel like.
Yeah, we did. We should have hit. We should always do. We usually have at least one good mini cast before we get started. That's probably actually could be like a spinoff show, as the pre and post cast. Behind something, because it's definitely not for tender ears. But there's a lot of good self-talk and discovery that you and I both do before that gets us, nice and good and lathered up for the day. But yeah, it's hope everyone had a nice Memorial Day. Hope you got to have some time off, had some cookouts, had some grill outs. I don't know if people set off fireworks for that kind of thing, but if you did, I hope you didn't lose any fingers. Took the day off myself, enjoyed things. It's a beautiful day. The summer is here. Racing season is upon us. It's hard to believe it's almost June. We're like halfway through 2024. So excited to be back. Excited to be back in the chair talking to you, getting another podcast out. If it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is available, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. He and I also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer multiple questions and let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, and a solid resource in a sport that has been way overcomplicated and way too confusing. Is a solid, actionable space to get great information from awesome people like yourself that are listening, that have been on the block and done all kinds of crazy things, from Ironman distance racing, podiums, championships, Kona, and everything in between. So be a part of that group. Don't be a lurker. Be a participant, and add in some good information. So that is it. We have no sponsors and we have no ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and when you brought up this topic, I was all in, because it's really something I spend a lot of time trying to figure out and understand the way I feel, and I'll let you kind of introduce it, but it's the Triple S. Triple S training system.
I like it. It is. We're going to have to coin that. But yeah, it's listen, I think it's a great topic for any time of year. And, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and a lot of them are very scientific and very interview driven. And there's plenty of coaches and plenty of professional athletes, and plenty of them are, based on, drama and rumors and stuff like that. But I do feel like this subject and the topic we're going to have today is applicable to every athlete, regardless of the experience level, the ability level, and what you're going for goals. And it really just kind of falls into a more common sense approach to how you structure your training and what should really be in it. And I've had this conversation a lot recently with quite a few athletes. And, we've said this many a time on the podcast. If you got into endurance sports for excitement and variety, and things that are just super invigorating, then you probably got in the wrong sport, because a lot of what we do is could be considered boring, right? Not very exciting. It's not hard enough. It's not, I want to go all out and I want to do it all the time. Like, that's not how you get better, all right, in the long term. And that should be the goal for all athletes, right? Is longevity in the sport, and how you can, and being available, right? The best ability is availability. So I was thinking about this the past few days. I was having a conversation with an athlete asking if they want to go harder on an active recovery ride. And we're, I think, 10 days out from a 70.3. And we looked back over like the weekend, and we just did like a little over 3.5 hour, really hard ride that he just demolished. And he's like, I want to go hard on this again. Or can I go hard? And I said, no. And did a few explaining. Then I said, let's break it down this way. Every single workout you do, everyone in your 7-day a week calendar, or whatever your training cycle is, every single one should go around three things, the 3 S's: soothing, straining, or stressful. And I think the biggest disconnect is between the last two, the strain and the stress. I think people think those are the same, but they're not. And I'll give you just quick examples, and we'll kind of talk through how they complement each other and how to maybe structure a week, or maybe even identify if you have a coach, or you're working up a training plan, or you're trying to, design your own program. This is where you see a lot of design errors with self-coached athletes. It's just way too much stress and way too much strain. And like they use like the stress workouts as like the core, and then they complement them with straining sessions, and there's no recovery, right? That's how we get better. Is very simple. We stress your body, it adapts to that stimulus, and you get better. It's very simple, right? But the recovery piece, right? People always talk about fueling and sleep, how you take care of your body. That's what allows for recovery. Without the allotment for recovery, there is no adaptation. So your work has to be complemented with the ability to recover. And I see this so frequently. Athletes want to go hard all the time, or that we start working with that that have hit a plateau, that are always getting burnt out, who can't get any better, who aren't sleeping very well, who are sore all the time. Like those are telltale signs of an athlete that is going too hard too often with no recovery. And so a couple of quick examples, and we'll dive into kind of the meat of things, is soothing, right? So your first one are soothing workouts. To me, those are days off, right? So you're soothing, you're encouraging recovery. Active recovery rides, super easy spins, right? Anything under an hour, even if it's zone 1, zone 2, that's a soothing workout. Like our athletes kind of joke all the time, like a 2K easy swim is a day off. It is. It's a soothing session. Like you get in the water, you get your muscles moving around, you're promoting recovery, you're promoting blood flow, you're soothing your body, right? And again, even day off, easy ride, easy swim, maybe even a run under 30 minutes, just because it's so short. You got to be careful with considering runs as recovery because of the impact that it has on your body, especially extending it over, like, depending on who you are and your ability, anything over like 20 to 30 minutes. Then you've got sessions that are straining, right? So to me, that's a run over 35 to 40 minutes. Because again, even if it's zone 1, zone 2, and you're breathing aerobically, you're breathing out of your nose, it's still a strain on your body, right? Like it is still impacting. You're still asking a lot of your ligaments, your tendons, your skeletal structure, your muscles. It's just high impact, right? And then cycling, that would be like, high zone 2, and then anything above, right? Anything requiring effort. And then in swimming, that would be, same thing, like really anything over, that's over your comfortable yardage, with anything of intensity over like a zone 2. Those are straining. Those are pretty easy to recover from, right? And that should be what like soothing and straining sessions should really be like the meat and potatoes of your workout. Stressful sessions are the ones where you feel like, you know what, I'm going to the well today. I am really, really, really burning things up. Like I'm doing a lot of VO2 work. I'm doing all outs in the pool. I'm doing long intervals and running. And even a long run for some people is a stressful session.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you're going from, 110 to 115, or excuse me, to 125, a 15-minute bump, that's stress. Right. And then you see all kinds of these mistakes with athletes, especially this time of year, is, a straining run that was an hour and 20 minutes a month and a half ago in 45-degree temps with dew point and humidity. Well, now if you go out and do it on a rolling terrain at 4 p.m., Well, that run is no longer a straining run. That is a stressful run on your entire system, right? And that's going to require more soothing sessions afterwards so you can adapt. But the problem you see with a lot of athletes is how they structure their sessions is it's stress, stress, strain, stress, stress, strain, soothe. And that really means is year one, it's going to take you more than 2 soothing days to recover from all those days. But then the sessions you did in like days 3, 4, and 5 are too much. So it's just, I think it's a very simple way to think about, in a realistic way to think about how your week is structured and look at it with the intent of, all right, is this session supposed to be straining? Because I would probably imagine that a lot of athletes probably look at a 45, 50-minute zone 2 run as soothing, but it's not. It's impacting your body, right? And sessions, and again, in order to get better, your body has to have the ability to recover and adapt. And so if you're not allowing that and you're jamming hard on top of each other, then you're going to come into some problems. You're not going to get better. You're going to stagnate. You're going to plateau. You're going to be overtrained. You're going to create niggles. And then guess what? You're going to enter your next stressful or high straining session under recovered, and it's going to compromise everything from, again, injury, likelihood, sickness, overtraining, lack of sleep, all things. And so I think it's a hopefully an easy topic, or a layout rather, to kind of wrap your brain around, and then we can talk further about how to maybe stack workouts in different ways, or just how to maybe look at your week as how those complement each other instead of just trying to, nail, as in like hammer to nail, each and every session that you do.
Yeah, man, this is just a huge thing, and I think it's why I've been so much a effort sort of guy all the time, because I think it's important to pay attention to these things. And when you said, a long run in March, or an hour and 15 in March is different than an hour and 15 in July, that's so true, man. And I just keep looking at that kind of stuff, and that's why sometimes I'll just do longer runs as run walks, because I just feel so much better, but I know I'm getting what I need out of it. And it's just always this, like, I think we have a tendency to look at every workout and judge it against the race. It's like, if I can't nail this today, I'm not going to have a good race. But if we think about things in terms of building layers on top of layers on top of layers, and looking for those real, feedbacks that translate into how that really applies to a race, I think that's the key to kind of training. And what you're describing here, for me anyway, really makes sense. I kind of think about, I was talking to CJ Castle, one of our new coaches, yesterday. And by the way, that little interview is going to be attached to this podcast afterwards. So if you want to listen to, he's a great guy. He's former pro triathlete, and he's got a lot of cool stuff that he thinks about. And anyway, we were talking about stuff like this. And, cause I was asking him, cause he was saying when he was a pro, he trained 25 to 30 hours a week. And so I've always been interested in this concept of how short can you train? Like how few hours do you really need or whatever. And we were talking about that. One of the things he was saying is, yeah, you can kind of do that, but there has to be more intensity and shorter, and more rest and stuff like that. But it's more of an intensity thing. And if you've done a ton of races and understand how to race and things like that, it matters. But it's not like the best system per se. But I was thinking about patience, right? And some of these recovery or these soothing workouts and things like that. And people have a hard time because they want to go harder all the time. And I struggle with that too. You kind of get out there, you start feeling good, and it's like, let's go rip it again. That's kind of always the catch, right? It's like you might go into a easier recovery soothing session with the idea of sticking with it, but then you start feeling good, and then you want to go get it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But what we miss is the patience element, and how that is a massive asset in racing. Because you're going to go out and have such a long day. And if you can really be comfortable in that patient zone, that will translate into being faster. And I just find that so interesting to think about how, yeah, I hate running slow, or easier, but you have to learn how to do it and you have to be okay with it. And that's just a sweet element that kind of gets in the mix a lot, I think, with training, because I felt great today. So I went after it a little bit more. And then eventually that just cascades, or you're going to need, it's like somebody can be feeling great. We've seen it many, many times with our athletes. Felt great today. I went out and pushed. I felt awesome. And then Sunday comes and they felt great. And then by Tuesday, they're like, I had to skip the last 3 days, or whatever. Yeah, you feel great in the moment, but you're not thinking about it in the long term.
Yeah, I mean it's a great segue, like the how you should think about and complement things, and because the truth of the matter is, and you just said it, is if an athlete chooses to turn a straining workout into a stressful one by overdoing it, or the legs just wanted to go today, coach, and I went 45 minutes longer. I chose to go run at 5 p.m. in the 100-degree heat. Or, again, you went hard in the pool. Or I was racing this body. I was trying to get a Strava segment. Your choice and your decision to turn today's straining session into a stressful one now makes tomorrow's soothing session probably more straining. Oh. So instead of having a strain session complemented by a soothing session and you're back and you're feeling great, you're overstrained, right? Turning into a stressful session now makes tomorrow's either a day off, so no session is the way we go, right? So we're choosing that, or making an adjustment, or it's not going to be as recovery soothing because it's going to feel strained because you dug so deep, or it's going to require 2 soothing days to get it back to normal. And that is a very hard concept, is the concept of consequence when you think about training prescription and how things combine. And I mean, that is, I think this morning alone, I think I adjusted 6 plans for today. Got up early and was looking through things, and was reading through. So my legs didn't feel good. I said, we're doing things different tomorrow. You're taking the day off, or I'm moving some things around to allow for extra, right? 1 recovery day isn't enough. It's probably going to take 2 soothing days to get you back to normal. And that's pretty standard, right? Because no matter what coach you have or how great you think they are, kind of the example I gave with running is, coaches operate on scheduling based on your normal movement, training, sleep, hydrating, diet, life pattern. The truth is a lot of that falls on you. So if if we schedule, the week before, and I schedule Mike for an interval session on Tuesday, but he goes out and then this is going to be maybe a straining session, but he doesn't sleep very good, and probably maybe has a couple extra burgers and brats and cookies from Memorial Day, so he's not going into it really well rested and fueled right in terms of making his body healthy. He does, and he goes out and he's mad at himself for eating like shit and having too many cookies, and so he just fucking hammers it. Well, now the straining session is a very stressful session, but there's no way to predict that, right? So you have to look at the next day and think, all right, well, what needs to happen, because we have to kind of overcompensate and complement what the reality was of the day. And that could be anything from a life standpoint, which is also why the best athletes in the world take ownership in realizing the kind of the gray, like the layover between strain and stress. And I'll kind of give the example I give when I talk to athletes about training zones is most athletes, they look at the beginning and the end of a training zone as a finite number, and it's not. It's just not. Coach, sorry, man. I went into a little bit of zone 3 today. I was 162 heart rate instead of 160. Is that okay? Did I really mess up the training? No, 0. Like, we don't even know what your exact zone 2 was that day anyway. It's not a finite beginning and end. It is like the colors of a rainbow, right? They all blur and blend into the next one. There is no absolute like finite point in which it turns from one color to a next. And that is also very like similar to how you look at the difference in a straining session and a stressful session, and how easily you can blend your way into a stressful session. Or, I know you had 10 intervals on there, coach, but I added 2 more just because I was feeling it today. And they blow their gasket. And the next thing you know, we went from a perfectly strained session to an overstressed session. And again, you rely on the athlete's feedback, and also because data says one thing, and athletes can frequently lie. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. Athletes like to lie. I feel great. Bring it on. Feeling good. This felt just about right. RPE was low. And then 2 days later, they're like, I'm shelled. I coach, my legs feel like rocks. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Tell me how we got here. Well, yeah, I probably went a little bit too hard on that ride, and it's probably dug myself a little too deep. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's not do that again, right? Because now we have to totally make up where we were going, because now we probably need 2 soothing days to make up for your high stress day, which impacts the rest of the week, right? Because it's really easy to pack straining days on top of each other. Like kind of a general, like couple of general layouts for weeks would be, I like to try to keep stress, because one thing you can do, right, is as you load up a week and you create a week for an athlete is, sometimes you can do back-to-back stress sessions. You're really trying to overcompensate, or supercompensate is like a term a lot of people use for like overloading the body. But you can only do it for a very short period of time. And then you have to have like just a heavy load of recovery. And you can do that for a day or two, but then you're probably going to have 0 strain. You're going to have like maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, high stress, 3-day block. But then the other 4 days of the week, all soothing. So all like zone 1, zone 2. You really have to like not overdo it, but err on the side of overdoing it with the recovery, because you asked so much of them. But on the other hand, you could do soothe day, strain day, strain day, soothe day, strain day, strain day, strain day, soothe day. So when you look at like, intensity factor or training stress score, again, training stress score, it's all about strain, right? Strain to me is like moderate to kind of like a good solid session. This felt like a solid session. That to me, that's a strain, right? You put effort into it. But then stressful stuff again, and that could be, again, don't hear me and say intervals. Hear me say stress. Just like I gave, like, we use the in combination as well of workouts, which is why I absolutely despise and hate the training stress score, and how athletes are obsessed with it, because Training Peaks offers it. It doesn't take into account total training load, doesn't take into account even back-to-back or same-day workouts. So I could tell Mike, all right, Mike, go out and run a 45-minute run in the morning, and that's going to have some strain, just because it does, right? It's a run over 35, 40 minutes. It's going to put some strain in the body. That might give you 40 TSS points according to Training Peaks. And then later in the day, I want you to do some hill repeats, which is a stressful run. Well, it's going to give you the exact same stress score for that hill interval and later. So you did double run day, right? So 2 hard strain to stress workouts. It's going to give you the same score had you not even done the strain session that earlier that day, which to me is unfathomable. How you can consider that independently, right? Of another, maybe it's called a 50, but it's not. It should be more like a 65 or 70, because you came into it in the same day having already done a strained session. And so when you think about how these again complement each other in a day, or you go in, you've got a double day, you got a swim and a run. And you think about, I've got only so much bandwidth for strain today before I'm probably going to tip over a little bit and tip into the stress. Then, I need to cut this main set short and allow myself to hit the one later. Or if I'm going to overly commit to this and make it that kind of strainful, stressful session that coach wants, now I need to understand that the run later today, I need to have 0 expectations. 0. I need to take it as slow as I possibly can and try to make that strainful run as close to a soothing run as possible. You have to make those decisions in real time. And because that's where athletes so oftentimes get themselves into trouble. is they separate life from training. They look at sessions as independently instead of a unit together in each day, or even in like a 48 to 72 hour block. And they go too hard too often, and they turn strain into stress, and they don't do enough soothing days. They don't have enough, sessions built in that allows for recovery. Even sometimes a moderately straining session could be recovery based, right? Because if you're working two different modalities, or you went out and I said, all right, Mike, go out and do an hour and a half negative split run on a Sunday, and you get up early in the morning, you do it, and you got the whole rest of the day to recover, and you feel great. Well, the next morning I might give you, 10 200s pull and paddle. So no lower body at all. That might be a moderate strain, right? Upper body wise. Or for the legs, right? It's a total day off. Right? It's a soother. So upper body strain, lower body soothe. And that might match perfectly. But again, let's say that, Mike's like, I got too much shit to do today. You go out at 7 p.m. to get your negative split run in. And you go out and you do it, and it was hotter than normal, and it kind of leaves you pretty shelled, pretty stressed. Well, and then your only time to make it to the pool is the next morning at 6 a.m. That is a totally different ask. And I don't think athletes think about this stuff enough. Oh, is it same day? No, it's not. Right? Because then getting up and doing that 10 200s, it's pull paddles. It's probably, while you're giving your legs a time off and upper body strain, it's still total body from your run. It's probably going to feel a lot more strainful than a soother. So then the next day, right, you think about how things need to be adjusted because we didn't get that real soothing day just from timing, right? Because now you're doing 2 sessions within 12 hours instead of maybe even doing 2 sessions in 36. If you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike gets up on Sunday morning, does a 7 a.m. negative split run, and then spends the rest of the day on the couch, Normatec boots, ice bath, cold, feels like a fucking champion.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeps like a baby, sleeps in the Monday morning, gets up, great day at work, heads out into the lake at 6 p.m. Beautiful night, beautiful day, total soothe. That compared to, again, 36 hours of basic recovery, right, in low life stress, compared to Sunday night, hot negative split run, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you get finished. By the time you cool down, get a little bit of sleep, wake up early the next morning, tired, fatigued, less stress, still next day. That's a totally different ask. And that's where athletes have to take so much ownership in realizing this is, I think, at least for me as a coach, it's one of the more, frustrating pieces of it when you try to impart this wisdom on athletes is when I see and when I hear or read athletes wonder why or feel like they should have had a better this. What I like to tell them is your expectations, right, show lack of wisdom in realizing what caused this. And the fact that cause and effect isn't a bad thing. It's just how it happened. So the best thing that we can do, right, is to adapt and adjust, and then probably end up soothing, right, a lot more than we probably think we need to, based on what the week was like. And usually it's an easy fix, right? And you see this too. You do all the same thing that I do. You see an athlete that's run down or not feeling good, and you say, all right, well, a 1-day soothe should be fine. And that's all it takes. Doesn't have to be a day off. It could be a day off, easy swim, easy ride, whatever. But it might take 2 days, might take 3 days. It just depends. And so I think that's, again, it's something that athletes have to take ownership of. And a lot of times they act way too robotic and way too black and white to really complement like that gray area that kind of allows things to kind of blend in and can prevent us from making mistakes.
Yeah. The psychology of this just fascinates me because I fall prey to it all the time. I mean, you could be doing a soothing session And like I was just saying earlier, you're kind of like, well, you know, it sort of pops in your mind, right? Everybody has this goal, this time they're thinking about, you know, I even if it's just finish or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, what I'm doing right now, how does this apply to me actually hitting my goal? You know, when you're kind of going easy and you're not getting after it or whatever, you feel like you're not improving, but it's so wrong. But it gets in your head real easily, right? Because especially if you feel decent, you're going out for a soothing 2000 swim and you're just cruising along and you're like, and I fight that a lot, but occasionally I'll just have to, you know, just kick it into gear for a little bit. You know, like we talk about strides a lot on a run, you know, it's kind of, you know, just throw a few strides in there, you know, and it's sort of, to me, is kind of like that. All right, I still got it. You know, you kind of just almost need that reminder sometimes. So I'm okay with that. You know, if you want to throw in a couple, you know, 50 somewhat hard in a 2000K easy swim, just to kind of reconnect the fact that you still have power or whatever. And I think that tends to be the whole thing that we forget, or we're kind of like, man, I don't know, I don't feel real strong right now. But then you can do it a couple times and be like, oh, I still got it. It's a weird thing that we forget. And I you know, occasionally I'll have to say to my athletes, I'll be like, don't you want to feel good? Don't you want to feel good?
Mm.
And that question, if you think about it, is reason enough to start thinking about what we're talking about today. Because you mentioned that split run and, you know, that the next morning swim that comes really quick in the chronological, whatever it is, of the day, right? It's like, you know, you've had 3 workouts in 36 hours instead of 1 workout in 36 hours. I always think about that stuff. You know me, it's like,
Same. Yep.
you know, it's like I try to create 2 days in one a lot and maybe throw a nap in there or something. But those kind of things really resonate with me. Some days I'll have like a Sunday. I might go out in the late afternoon for a long run or something. And then I just choose to do my next workout Monday afternoon or at night, just because of that reason alone. And I know that everybody doesn't have that flexibility, but I think it's something to be thinking about. You know, if you're getting up early and working out a lot, but like for whatever reason, one day you can't, and you have a hard workout on a late afternoon or night, and then you get up super early the next day and do something hard again. I just think you got to kind of keep that in mind and maybe turn that into turn it down a few notches the next day, just to keep that handy all the time. Because I do think that we just always want to prove stuff, and the body always gives you signals if you're paying attention. And if you wake up and you're limping around and you're struggling to move and all this stuff, and then decide you need to go hammer something, that's probably not a long-term plan. You know, it may work today, but then it's going to eventually catch up with you. But so I think those are kind of important things to keep in mind. When you did stuff, how hard you did it, how much time has there been between, what have you done? You know, there is that tendency, right? Like you said, to go eat the burgers and cookies and you know, drink all day, and then you wake up and go, damn it, I need to just prove that didn't affect me. And just going out and shredding yourself, and you might feel fine, because I think the body can handle 1 or 2 of those, but then it always catches up. So the soothing piece of this is not only important, I mean, obviously it is important in the layering of all the workouts, but man, think about yourself. I mean, treat your body and your health. I mean, care about yourself. I mean, that's why they're in there. It's letting it's like, I always talk about yoga a lot, and at the end they do shavasana, and that's just laying down and kind of just letting the work soak in. And that's how I think of soothing workouts. And in any yoga practitioner will tell you that is the most important part of any yoga session, is to let the work sink in. And I think that's how I look at soothing workouts.
Yeah, and you brought up 2 great points, right? And you can try to end it here, but in a minute. But the fact is, if you don't abide by that, then eventually you have the fourth S that comes in and it's stale. That's where you're working hard to go slower or to produce less watts. Heart rate's up, your legs won't fire. It's because you did too much stress too many days in a row and you're not allowing enough recovery. And that's when you see so often, like, athletes just like, I was going too hard too often, or maybe I wasn't going hard enough sometimes. Well, you can't. That's the thing, is like, it's the most basic phrase everyone hears in endurance sports, like, make the easy so the hard can be hard. Most athletes never go too easy. The easy they're supposed to go, which means they can never go as hard as they want to go. And that's how you get better.
Yeah.
And another thing that athletes think when they just crave this high stress is like, because that's what, you looked at, chronologically, how the hours between the next session accomplish. And that's how I look at 2 to 3 day training blocks, like, especially for 70.3 and Ironman block, like, when am I going to do like a simulation? When am I going to do a brick session, and do a 112-mile bike and a 15-mile run and, ruin your race day? I'm like, well, we're never going to do that. But what I can promise you is that in like a 72-hour span, we will get close. And then the point is to make that a strain and not one giant stress, right? So it might look like something: get up early on a get up early on a Friday morning, do a 4,400 or 4,800 yard swim, and then in the evening do maybe 1 hour zone 2 solid ride. Next morning, you get up and you do your long ride, right? So you've already done a 2.4 mile swim. Your long ride might be 5.5 hours, 6 hours, but from the night before, there's your 112, right? So I'm already halfway. And then instead of running off the bike in the PM, you do a 45-minute solid run. So we kind of separating things out, right? We got the swim in, we got the bike in, but we're giving enough separation to where we're now letting our body recover from the swimming and the cycling, and it's no impact on the body, right? So it's easy to recover from. Then we're gonna push the run to the evening for a couple of reasons. One, gives our body an opportunity to recover, right? So it can be a good quality run, right? Again, people don't think about stuff like this. Like, I'm giving Mike a 6-hour bike ride, and telling him to run 45 minutes off that is going to take way more recovery than saying, all right, after you're done with that, go home, take a nap, get in some boots, take a cold shower, or do some, cold water immersion, fuel up, go back out in the evening and get you a 45-minute run in. It's going to be one, better run session, more mileage, better pace, right? Better run form. And you're going to feel better, and you're going to go into it not soothed, but not high stress. So your ability to bounce back is better. So you did in the PM. Next morning, Sunday morning, long run, 2 hours max, maybe 2:15, depending on the athlete you are. Negative split, intervals maybe. Done. And then in the PM, again, you can get up at 6 a.m. and do that. Then you're done by 8:30. Rest, nap, probably feet up on the couch, watch some football, chill, get some good fueling in you, and then later on that day, 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, go out and get you another 45 minutes. You've done a full Ironman in 3 days without totally fucking yourself up and ruining your race, and had good sessions. We got our swim in, got our riding in, and we broke our run into 3 steps. And again, not everybody will get that distance depending on where you are, but let's say Mike does a 45-minute and he's running 9-minute miles. There's a 5-miler. Right. And then the PM the next day, another 5. That's 10. So all he's got to do is ask him to get 16 out of that 2 hour. So he might come up a mile or two short. Some of it might go over. But that 3 day block is one giant stress, but it's spread out like I'm having Mike lay on a bed of nails. Right. It's not super comfy, but it's not driving a nail through my calf.
You got my attention now.
Exactly. Right. It's not going to. And so you spread it out and you can do these sessions better. And then the fact of the matter is guess what? Mike wakes up on Monday, head to the pool, getting another swim in, right? He's not having to do nothing because he destroyed himself as a weekend warrior with high stress. And it's just like, and that's what you think, that's what you see so many age group athletes do that are self-coached, is that they stress for 3 or 4 days and they have to take 4 days of doing nothing. Like that's not really what you're training for. Plus, if you think about the total accumulated fatigue, right? You know, a couple of key indicators for fitness are, you know, durability, and then how quickly can you recover. I mean, that to me, I was telling this athlete earlier this week, I said, listen, as impressive as your time was, had like a 30-minute PR at Chattanooga 7.3, as impressive as your time was, the fact that you were back on the bike and back doing stuff like 4 or 5 days later, to me, is the most impressive thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, recovery is yes, it's all is coach led, but athlete executed, because we can lead them to the, you know, you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. And that's also true with fueling. But is that, you know, if they don't do the right things with recovery, then it doesn't matter. And that's why there's so much responsibility falls on the athlete. And a lot of times they don't think in that. They think about more of a, you know, this has to be done. And you've seen it and I've seen it. And then we've said a million times, an athlete that never misses a workout shouldn't be applauded. They should be investigated. Because they're not, they're lying to themselves, they're lying to us. Something ain't adding up, right? And it's not because they're not good enough, it's not because we're not good enough, because life happens and your body doesn't respond here and there. If you never have a bad workout, something's wrong. You need to put in the microscope. You know, give me the big lamp in the concrete room and let's get this interrogation going. But it is like there's just so many ways to think about things and spread things out and make them attainable. And right, it doesn't have like the, you know, it doesn't have quite the glamour and the glitz of that one giant massive session that I can go on the Ironman Chattanooga Facebook page and brag about that I did and make everybody else wonder, if their training is right. But again, it's about cumulative fatigue, cumulative stress. Because if you look out through the week and you do 2 stressful workouts and they both get you 100 points, but the rest of the week you're taking days off or doing soothing, you might have maxed out at 300. But if you evenly distribute things and you're complementing strengthful days and then soothing days and then maybe the occasional stressful days, you're going to get twice in the week. They're just not going to be, weekend warrior gang busting home runs, right? I know one of my favorite podcasts we ever did was small ball. And that's the approach every athlete has to hit. Is it's only one session a month probably should be a strikeout or a home run. The rest should just be singles, maybe even a foul out, doubles, triple. I mean, it'd be something. And instead of an all the way in or all the way out. And again, they all complement each other, but it's up to the athlete to own and understand, like, what's the point of today? What do I need to be doing? And again, most coaches' job is to slow athletes down. Just calm down. Like, this isn't making you better. I was telling this to another athlete the other day. I said, you always wanted to go, I tell you, Mike, ride, I give you a range of 160 to 180 for your watts for this ride, and you always hit 180. Well, the recovery cost is going to ask more of you. You're going to need more soothing the next day than when you could have just ridden at 165. Got basically the same stimulus, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, and probably not even need a soothing day tomorrow. Probably do some more strain. Ask yourself, are those 10 watts worth it? Is it worth it? Or do I need it for tomorrow if tomorrow is actually going to be quality? Because people hear quality and they think track workouts and hill sprints and 50 all outs in the pool. But quality is making the session, regardless of the intent, regardless of the speed, regardless of the duration, is making that session quality to get the most out of it. It's not to have an expectation or results or a set improvement. It's how can this combine with the other ones I'm doing to make tomorrow quality as well. Because quality sessions you have, the more quality your performance have. The more up and downs your sessions are, the more erratic they are, the more sporadic, the more, time off. That's where your racing ends up too. Very sporadic, right? Because you don't have that condensed training load to put you in the best shape you can be for race day.
Yeah. When you said small ball and then you mixed in quality, I started thinking about quality at bats and how when I played the field and there was a scrapper up in there and they would fall off like 15 pitches, they used to just annoy the shit out of me. But like a home run hitter would come in and, strike out on 3 pitches, every once in a while. They just, it just has a different feel to it. And I think the sort of scrappy approach and to training is just more successful in the long run. Like you said, the quality sessions over and over and over, and you're always just putting a little bit of pressure on everything. And the weekend warrior kind of mentality, we see it all the time, right? It's like somebody will take the whole week off or 3 or 4 days in a row off, and then they go out Saturday and bust a ride, and I felt awesome today. I just felt awesome. I mean, because they've been training up to that point, and then they take 3 days off or 4 days off. Of course you felt awesome. You had some good rest in there, and you're still in shape, and you have fitness, and you went out and crushed it, and then you want to go crush another one the next day, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit. When I'm training my best, I usually feel, pretty good. It's just kind of that, it's all relative, right? You're not hammered. You feel a little bit of strain on the body, like you've been working, but you feel pretty good. But that's different than feeling awesome. Yeah. Cause if I take a few days off and then I just go get something, I feel just alive a lot of times. It's a different feeling. So you want to kind of always keep a little bit of strain available or, kind of around. But it starts, it feels good. It feels solid. And I just think about that a lot as it relates to the taper, right? And why tapering is so hard for so many people, because, that work and back to Shavasana, that work is settling in, you're giving it a chance, your body to recover and take advantage of all the work you've been doing. And it's just very difficult because you start feeling buzzed and you might feel little aches and pains and creaks and stuff like that. But the goal is to feel sharp and to feel awesome on race day. So we're going through this. I feel solid. I feel good. And then you want to kind of time it out right. So you feel like you have that one day where you can just do anything. And I just think that's an interesting concept, because going through training, you want to feel that awesomeness, but you also have to appreciate and understand what's going on. Like you're saying, it's that accumulated work. And understanding that that's the whole purpose, really. And then you get to the day, and then that's when you're going to be able to unleash everything. But along the way, it may not feel perfect, but it's doing the right things that you need to do on one day.
You totally saved me there, because I forgot 2 things earlier I wanted to say. Okay. Well, first is that's one of the biggest things athletes have to remember too, is that if you have a insanely stressful day and your session's supposed to be stressful at night, then you need to bag it and do a soothing session, or at best start with a soothe and move to strain. Because if you go into take a stressful day with high, then you take another stressful one, the next day you're going to be shelled. Mm-hmm. So you got to make those edits. And every coach, regardless of us, should be encouraging you to make edits. Edit that. 100% edit it. Make that adjustment. But then going back to the taper, it's such a great point, and why I'm such a fan of much shorter tapers than I think a lot of coaches do. It's because a lot of athletes, especially in the Ironman distance, and then it also can really haunt you in 70.3, is they go straight into soothe mode like 3 weeks out.
Yes.
And I fucking hate that. Like, it drives me bananas. 1, you're losing fitness. And 2, race day is going to be one giant strain and stress. And you see this a lot with athletes. Like, they're they get soothing, and then they go from, that's like the one way you can get stale from is doing too much soothing, right? You take a couple of days off and start eating a little more freely. I don't want to do much. I don't want to dig too deep, man. I'm like, you've been digging deep for 6 months. Your body is prepared and made to dig deep. And if you make it forget, it's going to forget on race day. You got to keep tension in the legs. We use that. I think it was Steve Magnus who used that phrase with us in the first year we did this podcast. Is like, you always want to keep a little tension in those legs. You want to keep it snappy. You don't want to keep it stale, right? That's why you don't see, like 200-meter runners doing yoga at the start line. They want tension. They don't want to be loose and limber. They want to be ready to rock and explode. And so you've got to keep some strain and some stress. Not as much, right? But still keep it in, right? That's, cut volume, but keep stress and strain is a great way to think about your taper, right? It might not be a 4.5-hour ride with 90 minutes intervals. It might now be 2.5-hour ride with 60 to 75-minute intervals. You're still knocking it out and nailing it. But you got to keep that in. You got to remind your body that it's still preparing and needing to be prepared for stress, prepared for strain. And the only way to do that is to continue to remind it. And I think, again, so many athletes totally screw up their hard work and their effort and their training by taking a 3-week insane taper for an Ironman and then, a very liberal 2 weeks or more for a 70.3. We have very limited. I don't want to mess anything up. Well, you're likely to mess it up by actually removing too much intensity. Like you gotta. And it's great to make you feel sharp, and like you just said a few minutes ago, to make you feel fit and feel like an athlete and feel engaged, just like strides do, right? Just like a session, maybe with like some accelerations or some pops or some all outs, maybe 5 minutes worth in a bike ride that's lasts for an hour. But it's to me, it's like it's whispering to your legs, hey, this is for tomorrow. Just as a heads up, we're not going anywhere. We're not being lazy. We're not retiring, but this is for tomorrow. So it won't be a rude awakening. And you can get after it at mile 1 instead of, my legs didn't really come around until I was almost finished. You got to keep that stuff in. You got to keep the strain. You got to keep the stress. A little bit less of it, right? Just don't go straight into soothe mode. It drives me bonkers when you see athletes just shut down and basically retire for 2 weeks, going into a taper. I'm like, dude, like, I get it, but nail the sessions just like you did the other ones. Because you, again, slowly shed the fatigue. Don't try to do it overnight.
Yeah. Well, the hay's in the barn, man.
Mm-hmm.
No, that saying, it's interesting because I don't feel like the hay's in the barn until you actually do like your practice swim.
Mm-hmm. It's totally right.
It's because that saying kind of says, it's time to kick back. But if you spent all day loading hay into a barn, there's going to be straggler hay all over the yard. You got to clean that shit up and make sure everything's ready. You can't just throw a party and then just leave shit everywhere. You gotta finish the job, and I think that in taper, that's one thing we gotta try and get across is that, you're done with the long stuff, but you still got a few weeks left. I hate to ruin people's parade on that, but you got to clean up, man.
There's plenty of straw left, man. There's plenty of straw. It's so true. Like, and that's why I'm always kind of up athletes' ass during the tapers. I'm like, how you feeling? Because I'm honestly, like, I'm not worried that they feel bad. I'm worried they feel too good too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to race this weekend.
They're 10 days out. You're like, ugh. And then so as a coach, what you do is you don't continue on with that same taper. You actually add back in volume and intensity because you've peaked too early. They've shed fatigue really, really easy for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. So what you do is if they're like, you're like 7, 8, 10, 9, and you're like, I'm ready to explode. Then, and they just feel, and everything else says that. They're not just saying that, right? Because sometimes, again, they're full of shit. But everything else reads in line with what they're saying. Then you're like, you know what? Go out for tomorrow and let's maybe do an extra hour and a half volume and you're not digging a hole. You're just adding a little bit more fatigue now because we know we need to shed it. We need a buffer of when to shed and to get to race day on time. Same could be said for if an athlete says they're 4 or 5 days out and they're like, or maybe 10 days out. I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. You're like, perfect. Like that 48-hour window is when you should start to feel it. Anything before that, and you need to add some more in. But again, athletes are so scared to add that in. But when you go back and look at like your training, you're like, I was ripping off like really solid 5-hour rides on a Saturday after training all week long, and they're afraid a 30-minute run with some efforts might shell them for the race. I'm like, no. You need stuff like that. You got to stay in it, and also like early season races, great time to experiment with short taper. Great time. 2-3 days, maybe for 7.3. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
See what happens.
No, I agree.
Might tell you a lot about yourself.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing what we find out. All right, man, let's wrap it up. I want everybody to, after this music outro, I will attach the discussion I had with one of our new coaches, CJ Castle. So stick around and listen to that little 25-minute conversation with one of our new coaches. Anything else you got, man?
No, that's it. Yeah, he's an awesome dude from Dillon, Colorado, who you and I both witnessed as he was on the podium at Ironman Wisconsin last year. The race director or announcer was very keen on him being from Dillon, Colorado. If you remember that, he's like, "Oh, I'm from Dillon." It was very pumped, but yeah. Awesome dude. He and his wife, whole family, awesome people. So give that a listen. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Stay tuned for the rest of the episode with CJ. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at C26Triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me, you know where to find me. Robbie at C26Triathlon.com.
All right, man. That sounds good. Talk to you later. All right, CJ, my man, what's up? Let's just welcome in one of our awesome coaches, CJ Castle. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah? You're running around a lot over there.
No, we're trying to run around a lot. We finally have some decent weather up in mountains of Colorado. So
yeah,
spring's here. It's time to get outside and ride bikes off of a trainer for a little while, which will be nice. For sure, dude. Yeah, man. So why don't we get back in? I mean, we talked a little bit down at our coaches camp and everything. We had some nice conversations, and I really enjoyed them. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how you got into the sport. And I know you've also done a lot of mountain biking and things like that. But why don't you give me just a quick synopsis of when triathlon started and how it got to where it is right here? All right. I kind of ran all through college, did the typical high school sports. When I got to college, did a fair amount of running. And when I graduated, thought I'd give my knees a little bit of a break, just trying to look towards the future, and bought a road bike. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that summer, I was like, oh, triathlon, I should try this. It won't be hard, right?
Yeah.
Grew up surfing and found out quickly that surfing doesn't exactly translate to triathlon swimming the same way. So that first race was a bit of an eye opener. But I was kind of all in at that point. And over the years ended up reaching a point where I raced professionally for the better part of a decade and have coached on and off since then. Lots of private clients. I've coached university team for quite a few years. Actually went back to school and got my master's in exercise physiology to kind of bring it all together. So that's the brief triathlon story for me. There's been lots of breaks in between for me. I'm kind of an endurance sports junkie. There's been plenty of years when I haven't raced triathlons and sort of gravitate towards mountain biking, the longer stuff, stage racing or things like the Leadville races. But I always seem to find my way back to the triathlon start line one way or another. Now,
first, I want to go back over a quick story from you. I met you last year at Madison Camp in Wisconsin. And, I just go into these camps. I don't know a lot of people sometimes. And I remember it was so funny because I remember kind of going, we're riding along and I'm kind of saying, you doing all right, man? This is a big hit, whatever. I can't remember. I was just trying to explain shit to you. And then I found out, and then we ended up going back to Ironman and you raced. And I showed up the morning after the race because I didn't really see you that day, and you're on the podium and I was just kind of laughing about it because I remember trying to be like your coach and make sure everything was okay that day, but you went out and just absolutely crushed it. And I found out you're a pro and shit. I just felt like an idiot.
I'm a long ways removed from that. I had a pretty good day last year, so some stars aligned for me.
Yeah, no kidding. No, it was a great day and it was awesome to see. And I like to kind of be humbled like that sometimes. So, you've been coaching with C26, but obviously you've been coaching on your own for a while too. So, like, what kind of thing? I mean, we talked about it a lot at coaching camp, but you seem really kind of in tune with your athletes, and you probably have a wide range of athletes, right? So, I don't know if you have a favorite type of person to work with, or what you think you seem to gravitate towards or not. But why don't you talk about that a little bit, like as far as athletes and your coaching style and that sort of thing?
I think, going back to my history in the sport, I certainly achieved what I did through hard work. So I love working with athletes that are willing, and wanting to do the work to achieve something great for them. And I don't ever really see that as, a time goal or anything like that. That means something different for everybody. For some people, it's, I want to do my first sprint. For some people, it's, I want to try an Ironman, or maybe I want to go this fast. And so being able to help them and, use my years of experience and education to try to help guide them and fit into their life is kind of what I love watching people succeed.
Right.
I mean, one of my favorite stories is when I was coaching the UC Santa Barbara team, I had one kid that was terrified to even get in the pool. Like he wouldn't even get in past his waist. He had a true fear of swimming. And within, 6-7 months, he did his first race, and see his smile and just see him beaming, so happy that he was able to accomplish something like that.
Yeah. How do you get somebody from that point that can't even get in a pool? I mean, you must be some kind of magician or something.
I think it's just patience and finding what works for them, right? I mean, certainly you have to build the trust relationship between coach and athlete. But there's 100 different ways to get from point A to point B. And we just, you guys talk about communication and consistency all the time. And I think that's really the key. If you can talk openly with your athletes and figure out the best way for them to make their progress and then put that to work.
Right. So you obviously discovered all this through the podcast, I'm assuming?
Discovered
the C26.
C26.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. My wife did her first Ironman, I guess it'd be 2 years ago. And she had been listening to the podcast for a little bit of time. And she would come home and, the typical husband-wife story where they don't necessarily hear each other well, but she would come home and be like, I'm listening to these podcasts and these guys say all the same things you say.
Oh, wow.
So I started listening. And then from there, it was, we started making some friends, came to the Wisconsin camp, and it all sort of grew from there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought you were going to say she came home and said, these guys are saying all the different stuff that you say. I've heard that one before too, actually. It is funny how, people get into the podcast. So now you've been working with Robbie then for a while, or were you at all at one point, or what? Or is it just kind of like you're associated by things?
Just sort of associated. I mean, I don't have a coach myself. I kind of take care of all my own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's not gonna, I had two questions there and they both don't fit. So I'm going to keep moving. As a self-coach, I mean, I kind of do the same thing, but I work off of, a lot of our plans and variations of our plans and stuff like that. But you obviously build your own plans for yourself?
Yeah. And for every athlete, what I'll kind of do is I typically build sort of like the skeleton plan of some phases we want to target throughout their build for whatever they're getting ready for. Mm-hmm. And then we'll adjust those week by week as needed. We look at all the things that we should be looking at, like, what's their daily stress life? How's their load from training? Are they recovering? Are they having fun? I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that I've done personally is put a lot of focus into the fun part. Mm-hmm. I've done this sport for 25 years, and I think the reason I've been able to do that and not burn out is finding different ways. I'll ride my mountain bike a lot just to get off the road and do something different. It's good for me to be out in the forest and on the mountains and make some workouts easier. And next thing you know, there's a bunch of fitness to be gained and you stay a little bit more mentally fresh. So we find the things that people like to do and ways to plug that into their training and kind of help them build a lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. I think we talked about that a lot actually when out in Kansas City. That was kind of one of our themes because, I've been coaching for a while now and, I've probably left 18,000 million Training Peaks comments. And right. I would say half of them have been centered on that because, I was actually thinking about it today again, because I've really been enjoying riding the bike. And, we have all these, regimented thoughts in this sport. And it really, I guess the longer I'm around it, it's sort of like you can step back and see the forest in the trees because to me, it's like if somebody's enjoying stuff, they're just going to get better, man.
Absolutely.
So, and I love that you focus on that. And I assume that you're talking to people all the time, trying to find different things that they might like or like to try and break it up or whatever that looks like from your perspective.
Well, yeah. And everybody's different. Some people are like, I love the trainer. I want to ride the trainer every day. I like the structure. Great. Let's do it. And other people are just say, I want to get outside. I want to try something new and just find different ways to do that for mm-hmm. people, help them set micro goals along the way. But we all know that Ironman, half Ironmans, those are all strength events. We can build that strength 100 different ways. And if we can get people to enjoy what they're doing and it helps them be more consistent, then I think they end up feeling successful in what they're going after.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, man. The strength part of things, I did have a talk with an athlete just yesterday, I think it was, about, because they're doing their first 70.3 and mm-hmm. I'm sitting there watching their training going, you're ready, and it's coming up in about a month or something like that. And I said, you've obviously she's a strong swimmer. And then I've seen her bike, the distance multiple times. She just did a really nice half marathon last week. And I'm looking at it going, okay, you're ready. But they can't, she was having a hard time seeing the idea of putting them all together. Right. And
I think we always struggle with that. Right. I mean, yeah. Even 25 years in this sport. And I still look at myself sometimes and be like, ooh, Ironman sounds like a real long day. I don't know if I'm ready. But
yeah, we got to respect it. Right. So
exactly.
Yeah. And I was just saying to her, I'm like, okay, your strength is there in my opinion, just from watching you. I think you have the strength to do it. So now, we've got the last month, it's your first time, but start really thinking about your effort and your pacing and controlling that. And cause that's really how, to me, you're going to get off that bike and be able to have a decent run. But I think you're strong enough and I think mentally you're tough enough. So I see no problem there, but it's bridging that gap with athletes. And I know you probably have a lot of talks like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, every athlete has their own journey, right? But I think everybody at some point or another looks at that whole distance as overwhelming or intimidating. So we definitely have those talks and definitely, and one nice thing about Training Peaks is you can help guide them and look back and say, hey, look at all this work you've done.
Yeah.
All this consistency builds on itself and you're more ready than you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be overwhelming for sure. That's why I'm just like, you really just got to take it like life or, say you're going to drive here from Denver. If you start thinking, hell, that's a, 20-hour drive, that'll kind of overwhelm you. But you just got to just be in the moment the whole time. And I think that's the key to racing too, is because you're going to have highs and lows and you can't just be thinking you want to be done right when you start. You just got to be where you're at and go through it. But so anything, have you recently had any kind of revelations about coaching or anything like that, or something you've been thinking a lot more? I mean, we just talked about strength and that, but any other things that you think about a lot while you're coaching besides fun and strength and some of the challenges that you like to address with people?
I think everybody's got their own challenges. I mean, we have our own challenges at home. We've got 4 kids. So finding the time and finding ways to get creative to fit training in is always something that, I'm looking to get better at. I think we do a pretty good job, but we can always get better. And it's everything from like, all right, well, kids are going to do a mountain bike ride. I guess I'll do my long run with them or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just to make it work and help balance life. I mean, triathlon's supposed to enrich us, right? So whatever we can do to take stress out of it and make it enjoyable.
Right. So yeah, you seem like a pretty versatile guy. Are you still surfing? Or was that something?
When I can, but I live pretty far from the ocean these days.
Yeah. Do you do that crazy kayaking down the rivers out there?
No, I'm not much of a river person.
No?
Never really gotten into it. No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I mean, I'm not into it either, but that's one of those things that looks incredible to me.
Yeah,
it scares the shit out of me. Some of those people, what do they call that? They just sort of find an opening and they just go down a stream and then plop into a river and just see what happens. What's that called? Extreming? I don't know. It's probably extreme.
Something extreme. I don't know. Some of the stuff those guys do blow my mind. I'm like, how do you know you're coming out of that alive?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they do. So you've been coaching for how long now?
Let's see. How old am I? Off and on for 20 plus years.
Okay.
So
are you going to be coming to our camps?
Yeah, I was at swim camp. I'm coming to Nashville and I'm coming to Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Year. I was at Wisconsin last year as an athlete.
Yeah, I know that. What are you racing? What do you got coming up for yourself?
I just did St. George and then Louisville and Kona this year.
Oh, okay.
And if we'll see about anything else, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. There'll be some fun stuff around town, some mountain bike racing probably.
Yeah. So how you feeling about Kona? You feel like it's, is it something that, I mean,
I've been there, so I think I have a very healthy respect and maybe fear of that place.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the energy of it. I love the history of it. I love everything about it. I certainly am not ready yet. I hope that I have plenty of time.
Yeah. I mean, you train so hard to qualify and then it's like, all right, you got to re-up and train your ass off again, and
right.
So let me ask you this, man, as a former pro, how do you, I guess, cause I always think there's a lot you can learn from pros, but I also see a lot of age groupers try to act like pro or train like pros. I think acting like pros might be a better philosophy than actually trying to train like, you know what I'm saying? Do you have to, do you have athletes that really want to be a pro or train like a pro? I mean, cause okay, let me ask you this. That's not really a clear question, but how about like, when you were training at your peak as a pro, how many hours a week were you going after?
25 to 30 on average.
Yeah. But
I think that's the part that, the age group, a lot of us, and it still happens to me now, get ambitious and look at it and like, ooh, I can do that. I can put that work in, but we fail to recognize all the other stresses, maybe stress isn't the right word, but all the other responsibilities we have in life that take time and recovery and everything else that you really can't do that. I mean, It was great when I was racing pro. It's all I had to do. So I could go swim masters and go for a run and eat breakfast, take a nap, go for a bike ride. Like I didn't have any other responsibilities. So recovery happened a lot easier. I was also 25 years younger.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just by the nature of what I do and stuff, I have some of that flexibility because of my lifestyle and all that kind of thing. But man, I mean, that's like, are there any pros that don't train that much that you know of? I mean, that are successful?
I think that there have been, I think the pros that aren't putting, the Ironman people that are putting in 25, 30-hour weeks that are racing professionally, I think that's more or less kind of a standard across the board. The men and women that are having success doing less of that, I think everything is just really targeted. and probably have a little bit more time in the sport where they've built the volume.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, the easy zone one ride, maybe everything is a little bit more tempo focused. So they can cut a few hours here, or cut a few hours there. Or somebody like Lucy probably doesn't need to swim 10 hours a week to maintain her speed, right?
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of that. But for the most part, it seems like the successful Ironman athletes, all of those men and women are putting in quite a bit of volume time-wise.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that also because of maybe how it can relate to an age grouper, and because I'm notorious undertrainer, so I'm always looking for that thing. I've seen those plans out there where 10 weeks or 10 hours a week to Ironman, but it is all hard, and I think it's
And are you happy? Like, are those athletes happy when they finish and excited about being in the community and doing it again? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a great question. Yeah. I don't know, dude. I've never been a big fan of super long rides. So I'm even in a quest right now where I'm just riding all the time, but not long all the time. You know what I mean? So I'm almost wondering if this is a kind of approach that may be maybe worth something, but I don't know. It's such a puzzle. And I do think that there's ways, especially, I think you made a great point though, with the volume history. And it's also knowledge and experience in the situation too, right? Because I know that I can go out there and do it at a decent pace. Probably if I train, a lot less than I have. I don't know. It's something to know what you're feeling.
That's the coaching puzzle too, right? Because
exactly.
Every athlete's different. And the one person who might do really well on very focused trainer rides, your next athlete might be like, hey, look, I just want to ride my bike long.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, how do we make that work for where you're trying to get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It definitely all works. There's ways to do it. It's just figuring out how to put the puzzle together for that particular person. And that changes from time to time with people. I live in an area where we've got snow on the ground in serious winter 5 to 6 months out of the year. So I don't train those months the way that I would in the summertime or the way that I have historically. I have to do things differently and be creative.
Yeah. Well, that's God's plan, man. Hibernation.
Right. I've done that a few times too. That usually makes for a tougher spring when I come out and get back on the bike.
Yeah, no shit. When I watched you on the podium at Wisconsin, I just hung my shit up there for a couple months. No, man. So anyway, well, I guess there is a question here that's been submitted. It was like, what's your favorite? What do you eat after a long ride? What's your favorite treat? Post-ride long. Do you have go-tos like that? I mean,
I definitely will have some treats here and there. It's usually a burger and probably a beer.
Oh, that's
Colorado.
So that's a rarity? Are you
huh?
That's a rarity. I saw you were showing me your plants. Do you eat off the land over there?
No, I wish. We can't grow any. Our growing season is so short.
Well, you need to get those. What are the greenhouses, like the weed growers?
Yeah, we've got one. We built one last year. We just haven't. We also are remodeling our house, so.
Oh, okay.
We have a bunch of half-finished projects right now that we're trying to tidy up and move on from.
Okay. Any other thoughts you want to get out there about your style, or what it'd be like to work with you as far as a coach?
I think anybody. Like we keep talking about, I think if people are willing to be consistent, I think that there's a way for everybody to achieve what they want. If you can have an open conversation and realize that, hey, maybe that might not occur on the timeline that you're hoping for, but it's out there and people can do it. And I think any of our coaches are probably primed to be able to help with that kind of thing and guide people through their journey. This sport's been pretty good to me. It's been a big part of my life. So being able to coach and help as many other people enjoy this as much as I have is fun for me. It's kind of a way for me to give back to the sport. It feels good.
Okay. So I was going to ask, because it's always a big thing, is what is your why? But it sounds like you may have just answered it as far as coaching.
Yeah, my why. I mean, triathlon, endurance, athletics is kind of in my blood. I studied it at school. It's been a big part of my life for the better part of 30 years. And, you know, my other job is as a paramedic, and I love getting caught up in my own head, looking at the idea of like, wow, do we have so much disease and so many problems because people don't move anymore and people don't challenge themselves with, you know, things like a triathlon or a marathon or an ultra or long bike rides, things like that. And so it's a way I can give back to the sport. I think it's a way people can be healthier and, you know, live a happier, healthier life, hopefully for longer.
Oh shit! You just opened a can of worms there, but we got to close it down.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that was where we really got heavy when we were talking in Kansas City. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I just think that as I get older, and you know, I see a lot of my old friends, you know, come back into my life, and I'm going, "What in the hell you been doing?" You know, I just think there's so much to be said for movement. Movement is medicine, and I think it is the ultimate medicine. So, well, that's cool, man. I like that you have that approach and, philosophy. It's a struggle at times for sure to get back out there every day or, you know, and stay consistent, but going all the way back around, it's just, where do you find the fun with it? And
yeah, I
think it just pays off. You know, I say, if you can keep finding fun in what you're doing every day, because, you know, there's nothing worse than going into Training Peaks and seeing the headline comment that says, you know, man, this really sucked. Right. And, you know, it's like the thing is sometimes they don't even know why, you know? And
well, and then as coaches, we struggle with like, oh man, why did it suck? What happened? What do we do different? And
right. Yeah. And
yeah, fine.
Yeah. Cause it can be, I don't know. It's so perplexing at times, but when you're dealing with the life piece, that you know, you're not on top of all the time, but the communication is key, and it sounds like you're a great communicator. So, and I know you got things to do, but it's been a great chat, man. I hope to do more of these as we go, but for now, that'll do it, man. I appreciate you making the time and in between picking up kids and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, we'll have to get offline and talk a little bit more, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see you soon in Nashville.
That's right. I will be there, hopefully ready to ride with you, man.
I've never ridden the Trace. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be looking forward to having you pull me along out there. So you better be ready,
I'll try
man.
my best.
I'm coming.
All right, Mike.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Good talking to you.
All right, you too. See ya.